Go, make disciples, teaching them to observe whatsoever I have commanded you. Those words, pretty much verbatim, are in this book in my hand, the Bible. I believe it's in Matthew chapter 28. I'm looking there now to see if it is. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. Folks, Jesus has not told me that. Jesus told disciples that he was with. Jesus did not give this command to me. He gave it to those who were with him that day. How many of you understand English? Now, should disciples be made today? Certainly. But they're not going to be made by the people that Jesus spoke to and lived with for 3 years. They're not. Those people are long been gone. Today, people are making disciples, but they're not disciples of Jesus. They're not. A man named Saul was blinded outside of Damascus. He was. You can read about it. And he was an apostle to the Gentiles. There were 12 apostles already appointed to the Jews. They had been appointed. Peter had replaced the one that was missing. It's right here in the book of Acts. We do not have disciples today that were made by Peter, James, John, or any other person that you read about in this book. It's not there. We do have preachers today. There are a multitude of preachers. There are. If there's anything, there's an overabundance. That's my opinion. But the demand that we should be disciples is true. We should be disciples. And that's what I intend to do and to make known in the months or days or weeks, and months ahead. That's what I am going to do. Focus on making a disciple. A disciple is not just whipped out of thin air. No. I became a believer when God spoke to me. Instant believer. Well, you say, well, that hasn't happened to me. I know it hasn't happened to you, but I know it has happened to me. God spoke to me. He said words to me, and I understood every word he said. I did, and that was about 40 years ago. Real close. God, told me what Bible I should buy. I bought it. He also told me that I needed another book, so I bought it. So I've got 2 books, the 2 that God told me to buy. And now you will have to deal with me as a preacher. God himself told me to preach. You may not believe it. That's fine. If that's the way you want to be, don't believe it. I am in my Father's house right now. I am where God told me to be. And this year, I am doing what God told me to do. Advertise in the Gazette. That's a small paper. It's local. He said advertise in it or put an announcement in it. Announcing my Father's house, teach one to be one. Teach one to be one. And if I can just teach one to be one, I will have accomplished something. I will. But everyone should become disciples of Jesus. They should. But what we have today is disciples of the evil one. Now you say, well, the evil one doesn't make disciples. Do you want to really take that point, take that stand, that the evil one does not? Do you even know who the evil one is? Jesus knew he met the evil one. He talked with the evil one. I don't have any desire to meet the evil one. None whatsoever. I hope I never meet him, the evil one. But the thing about it is, the evil one can get into anyone's heart. The evil one got into Ananias and Sapphira's heart. Ananias and Sapphira were husband and wife, and they sold some property and held back some money when they handed money to the apostles. And that's when something happened. Peter was the apostle, and Peter could hear the voice of God. That's what Peter could do. And Peter challenged the man. Do you want I should read it? Where this is written? Ananias, Ananias. Ananias was the man's name. It's in Acts chapter 5. A certain man named Ananias with his wife Sapphira sold a piece of property and kept back some money for himself with his wife's full knowledge. In other words, they were in it together. And bringing a portion of it, he laid it at the apostles' feet. Peter's feet. And Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit? Peter's not talking. Jesus is not talking to Peter. Jesus is in heaven with God. But the Holy Spirit had come and Peter had received the Holy Spirit, the promise that Jesus made would come to them. Peter is filled with the Holy Spirit, and he is speaking by the Spirit. Jesus has got absolutely nothing to do with what's going on in this chapter. Jesus is in heaven with God at this time. And as I read, the Holy Spirit and kept back some of the price of the land, while it remained unsold, did it not remain your own? And after it was sold, was it not under your control? Why is it that you have conceived this deed in your heart? Where was the deed conceived? In his heart. Who do you think put that there? Satan. It's right here in the verse. Satan. You have not lied to men, but to God. Jesus is not here, friend. He hasn't been here for a while. But there have been men anointed by God that preach. They make things known by the Spirit. The Holy Spirit. People had better learn. You cannot believe what everyone says. And you sure had better believe what Jesus said when he said that there would be false teachers leading people away from truth. That's not what I'm doing here in my Father's house. The message, the word of the Lord came to Bob McGee, Joseph McGee, Robert Joseph McGee. The word of the Lord came to me, and I am following it to a T. Teach one to be one. Will you become one? I will teach one to be one. I will.